Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, and welcome into another Dooley Noted Podcast, as always, presented by the great folks over at Titan MRI. And we're coming to you, as always, from the Meldon Law Gator Studios and here at Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. I got all of my plugs in there, the early plugs. I'll get to all the other plugs. We appreciate all of our sponsors, everybody who does something to make this successful, and that's what it is right now. It's doing really well. The numbers are great, and we appreciate everybody. Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times will be on today. He covers the whole state, basically state of Florida college football, including Florida, including FSU, including Miami. So we'll get a good discussion going with him. Coach Spurrier will be on again on Monday, and the next Friday, Danny Werfel scheduled to join us. So that'll be a lot of fun, and we appreciate all of our great guests. And again, Matt Baker will be appearing on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line. Obviously, with what happened with the hurricane and everything, we were very lucky. Tampa was lucky. Fort Myers was not lucky. It's terrible what happened down there. I mean, there's more than 20 people dead. It was a bad hurricane, and it's not done yet. So we were very fortunate. It was the strangest thing. I've never experienced anything like this. On Monday, I got into my car, and you have that heat index. Of course, it tells you it's hotter than it really is, but because the sun's been beating down on that thermometer. But it was I've never seen it this high. It was 115 in my car, and when I turned it on. On Thursday, I got in my car, and it was 62. I'm like, that sounds like the score of a Kentucky, UTEP basketball game. 115 to 62. But I've never seen the temperature drop like that. So we were very lucky. I mean, I got one limb down. No power outages, obviously. But, man, heart goes out. Anybody who can help donate to any Red Cross or anything. I know Florida has sent some information out as well. It is about as bad as it could have gotten through that area, especially in Fort Myers Beach. Feel bad for a lot of people, not just people who've lost homes, but businesses. It's awful what went on. So anyway, not much you can do about it. These hurricanes do happen, and Ian was one of the worst. All right, let us get to, on that uplifting note there, I had a good joke to tell, but nobody laughed at it, so I'm not going to tell it. All right, it's time for us to get to starting lineup presented by Hand Law, as always. And of course, Hand Law is a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. Thanks to Chris Hand for the Hand Law starting lineup, which we love to start the show with. Number one is the weirdness of a Sunday game, which has never happened at the Swamp. There was some bad info sent out earlier about some other games. It turned out they had the date wrong, and it was just – and I was trying to figure out why Florida would play back-to-back games on a Sunday. One of them was in Tampa, one of them was in Gainesville, but no, it turned out it wasn't true. They had the dates wrong. But there is one Sunday game in University of Florida's history. It was the Sun Bowl. I can remember watching it on CBS, and it was a disaster for the Gators. A lot of trips had been made across the line, because I think it's right across from Juarez, El Paso. And that team did not want to be – well, they wanted to be there. They just didn't want to be there for a football game. And they got destroyed by Texas A&M. That's the only time Florida's ever played on a Sunday. And it's weird. For one thing, a lot of you will not be able to watch it. And maybe that will spur a little bit of attendance bump that I was wondering what kind of crowd it was going to be, but – now, if you get ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus, you can watch it, and I do get ESPN Plus. And the reason I got it was because of the Masters way back a long time ago. But anyway, I've got it, so I'll watch it. But look, a lot of people are saying, well, why don't they just move it to ESPN News or ESPNU or something? Look, there's a reason why it's on ESPN Plus, because they want you to get ESPN Plus. And that was the deal they worked out with the SEC, prior to this. Well, I mean, it's not like they decided just to keep it there. This is what they want. They want this game. So if you're a diehard Gator, you have to get ESPN Plus to watch the game on TV. It's just marketing. It's it's capitalism. I mean, it's what it is. It's free market, and that's what they do. There's no duty for ESPN or the SEC to make sure that everybody can see this game on a different channel. It's just the way it is. And so don't worry about it, but it is going to be weird. Florida does lose a day in prep for Missouri next week. I don't think it's a big deal at all. We see these NFL teams play Sunday night and then Thursday night, although we'll get to that. And I know these are NFL players versus college guys, but you got 85 of them versus 53 of them. So I think they'll be fine as far as that goes. One day is not going to make that big a difference. It's just that you have to condense some things on some of the other days. All right, number 2 on the hand law starting lineup. There have been changes in the depth chart on defense. And I think when you're 13th in the SEC, 13th in the SEC. I think they're 108 in the country in total defense. I know they've played really good teams. I talked about this last week or Monday. They play number 7, number 8, and number 11 in the country right now. That's who they've played. When you play teams that good, you're going to give up a lot of yards. But this defense is not playing well. We all know that. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's not just been the busted coverages. It's been little subtle busts in coverage where guys don't go exactly where they're going to go, or they turn out instead of in. There's a lot of stuff going on with this Florida team defensively, but they made these changes. Justice Boone gets to start at defensive end. Jaden Hill, who has been out since before last year when he tore his ACL, they seem happy about him. He was certainly a good player before he got hurt, before last season. And then Kamari Wilson starting for Trey Dean. He played a lot because of Trey Dean. Now, Trey Dean, they say Trey Dean's hurt. You have to take them at their word. But this is a move that I think would have happened anyway. Somebody else has to play that position. So we'll see if maybe it's a little bit better. They're playing, not a great offensive team, so we'll see what Florida can get done. Physically, look, talent level-wise, it's a blowout. We all know that, but it's all about execution and discipline. That's what it's about. Can you execute? Can you stay disciplined? And especially in a game like this, which is such a weird dynamic playing on a Sunday. And, of course, the joke I told at the Quarterback Club Tuesday is a lot of guys on defense, this is as close as they'll ever come to playing on Sunday. But it is what it is. I mean, unless maybe some of these guys are better than I thought they were, and it's all of a sudden it's going to click for them like it did for Anthony on last Saturday. We'll see. All right. Number 3 on the hand law starting lineup, a little bit on Eastern Washington. This is their first ever SEC game. It's the first ever trip to the state of Florida. As you know, probably by now, this game was scheduled when Jim McElwain was here, but it was supposed to be scheduled for 2020. By then, McElwain was gone, and then COVID came, so they couldn't play the game, went to an all-SEC schedule, and, of course, they ended up rescheduling it for Saturday, and then it ended up being Sunday. So that's where it comes from, why the game is on the schedule. They were a pretty good team last year. They went 10-3, and they're a couple years removed or 3 years removed from playing for the national championship in FCS. Look, we've seen FCS teams beat Power 5 teams. It happens. You don't want it to happen. We've seen them give them fits. Samford, we've seen that happen. So, but I will say this team's 1-2. They lost to Oregon 70-14. Now, Oregon, as it turns out, is a pretty good team. And that maybe tells you how good Georgia is. But Georgia is kind of, they only play when they have to. And we saw that last week against Kent State. But Eastern Washington is not a great offensive team. They got a couple of good players there. Defensively, they're a team built on players from Washington, Oregon, California. There's a few from, a couple from Arizona, I think, stuff like that. There's no players from the South. It's going to be a trip for them. Their stadium seats 8,500, something like that, the red turf. So this is going to be different for them. All right, that is number 3. Number 4, it is a great weekend, or a great Saturday especially for college football. I'm excited about it. I mean, again, nobody's got to work on Saturday. Some people have to work, but no Florida game to worry about, nothing to agonize about. You don't have to get in that mode. You can just go to a sports bar and watch multiple games, or go somewhere or get a second TV like I have. Just watch college football. We have 5 ranked-on-ranked games. And the thing is, we're into October as of Saturday, and that's why, because now conference games start to come up. And, of course, with the SEC dominating the polls, they're going to have a lot of ranked on rank, and there's some great ones in the SEC. That's the other thing. We've got a lot of really cool SEC games being played this week. So I am excited that that Florida's game is on Sunday. Kind of makes me want to go, just because it's supposed to be another nice day. We're getting all these great nice days after the hurricane, which is doesn't make it worthwhile, but it is interesting. All right, that is number 4 on the hand law starting lineup. And number 5, I was going to talk a little bit about basketball, which started this week, basketball practice and Colin Castleton and everything. But I do want to talk about what happened last night, Thursday night, with Tua Tagovailoa. Look, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen. That was up there with Keontae Johnson, when he collapsed on the floor. When Tua's got his fingers all like weirdly shaped, and you're like, Al Michaels comes on and says, we talked to our medical expert, and he says that's a neurological thing. You're just like, oh my God. So there's going to be a lot of talk. There's going to be a lot of opinions. It's just like everything else. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's an expert. Look, people can pass concussion tests. It doesn't mean they're okay. And we saw that with Timothy Tebow, who had his concussion to the point where he was puking into a bag, and then passed the concussion test at Florida. And they brought in experts from all over. And then later in his book revealed for the LSU game, I wasn't all there. I still wasn't okay. I've had a concussion. It takes a while. But I will say this. I've heard some people say, when you're in a game, this goes back to last week's game, when you're in a game and you get up and you wobble and you fall or you stumble, you should not be allowed to play in the game anymore. That's a rule they need to make. I agree with that. I don't think you should be able to play for 2 weeks. But I think it was, I can't remember who it was said this is brilliant line, and unfortunately it's a brilliant line, but that the 54-year-old Tua is going to wonder what the 24-year-old Tua was thinking. He's absolutely right. So anyway, it is what it is. Nobody knows more about this than he does, and everybody else that's close to it. But I certainly still think there should be a wobble rule. All right, that is the hand law starting lineup. We got to get a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times. We look forward to talking some college football with him here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Dripco To Go. What would give you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam Dripco To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Spite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Pat Dooley's Story Time is brought to you by East Lake Pediatrics. Nobody knows how to provide pediatric health care for little Gators better than Dr. Mike and the other board-certified pediatricians and the pediatric nurse practitioners of East Lake Pediatrics. They have been providing personalized health care to the children of Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties since 2004. And with the recent addition of Dr. Chris, who is also board certified in sports medicine, they are now offering care for youth sports injuries as well. To learn more about East Lake Pediatrics, call 727-372-6760. And to get to know them better, listen to Dr. Mike and Dr. Carey on their Peds and Pop podcast on multiple platforms. Gator Football is back, and the best way to get exclusive insight is a membership in the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you the access to speakers like coaches, Gator greats, and more. Yeah, I even talk over there. It's pretty cool. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-person meetings or for non-locals via Zoom with an out-of-town membership. Right now, out-of-town memberships are only $150, and all new out-of-town signups get entered to win 2 Champions Club tickets to homecoming. That's pretty cool. Against Missouri, speaker presentations, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or call me, Pat Dooley, 352-317-3444, and I'll get you in touch with the right people. Gainesville Quarterback Club. Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. And now on our Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line, the great Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times joins us. Matty, how you doing?
I'm good, Dooley. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I tell you what, we knew September was going to be interesting. I don't think we knew it was going to be as interesting for the 3 state schools, or of course the Power 5 schools, as it turned out to be.
Yeah, that's for sure. Going into the season, I was pretty clear that Miami was number 1. Florida and Florida State, I didn't have a great read one way or the other. Obviously, I was wrong. Florida State is, as we sit here today, the clear best team in the state. I don't think it's close. Florida, I still don't know what to make of them. If they're more like they looked against Utah, which I still think is a good team, or more like they looked against USF or somewhere in the middle. And Miami, they've got a lot more work than I thought. I thought Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback, I thought he was a first-round pick. I had seen enough last year. It's not like Anthony Richardson, where he had certainly showed flashes last year, but he had 1 start. Like, you can't make anything from that one way or the other. But Tyler Van Dyke did enough last year to make you think, this guy's an NFL quarterback. He's got it. And now, last week got benched against Middle Tennessee. Receivers aren't helping him a lot. I've got major questions about the coaching staff's kind of game day management. But so far this season has been weirder and very different than I expected.
Yeah, let's talk about Miami first because I'm with you. I told people if I was still had a vote in the AP poll, which you do, I would have Miami pretty high up because of Van Dyke. I said, I saw enough in this guy. He's really good. And he hasn't been good, and nobody, it seems, has been good. And the other thing I ask is, how can a Charlie Strong defense let guys get behind him like that all those times?
Well, some USF fans would point out that Charlie Strong's defenses and teams are not quite what you think. I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions and say like the game has passed Charlie by or anything like that, but you look at the way his teams at USF performed, and you look at the early results at Miami, and it's not good. I don't have a good read yet on what is wrong with Miami. I think they aren't loaded with dudes. The receiving core is not fantastic, and that's a major indictment on the previous coaching staff. I mean, look, you can throw a rock and hit a really good receiver or running back into the state. You just can't. Yeah. It was terrible that the Noles did not have good receivers or DBs last year. They played poorly. Florida's receivers this year are not spectacular either, but they're not as bad as Miami. For Miami to be in this situation where they just don't have guys who can get open and catch the ball, that's very stunning to me. And as I look at it too, I've got a lot of faith in Mario Cristobal, the program builder. I think he can do that. I think we saw that at Oregon. He can get the infrastructure there, get everybody, rowing the boat in the same direction, get the dudes. But, talk to people up at Oregon. There were major questions about him. Just what do you call on 3rd and 3 with the game on the line? That type of stuff. How do you prepare X's and O's during the week? Look, you had Justin Herbert at Oregon, who's a freaking star and underachieved, right? So it's fair to question. I think Mario kind of top level can do it. But when it comes to doing everything it takes to win on that Saturday, I had some slight reservations heading into the year. And here we are, through the first month, I've got major reservations about where the Canes are.
You mentioned USF. Of all the scores from last week, I still think that was almost the most stunning. We saw that team and we're like, well, maybe USF's not that bad. And then we realized, no, they're bad. After that Louisville game, I couldn't believe that they could go to the Swamp and take that game down to the last kick and then go to Louisville, which I don't think is that good either, and get destroyed. That's college football, though, I guess.
It's college football, yes. One of the things about this year is everybody stinks except for Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State. You look at and maybe USC, Michigan, I don't know on some of those, but you take 7, maybe all the way through 70. Every week is nuts because there are not a lot of great teams. The transfer portal in particular has just changed everything, where it's not just Texas A&M can lose a really good guy, or Miami can lose a really good guy, or Florida State can lose a guy. It's that those guys go to the lower level. You look at Marshall beating Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. The star of that game was Kalen LeBourne, the running back at Marshall, who started his career as a 5-star running back at Florida State. So the gap kind of shrinks, and I think that's kind of why we're seeing just these some weird results where USF has they have talent, right? They had a bunch of high level D1 transfers, Gary Bohannon at quarterback from Baylor on down the list, Joe receiver from Clemson. They've got some talented guys where I think in a good week they can play up, and a bad week they can get destroyed. And some of it's just kind of the situation, the landscape as a whole, Dooley. But I also think some of this is just USF. That's just where they've been, is take one step forward, 2 or 3 steps back. It seems like it's been that way, really for several years, but certainly the Jeff Scott era, where they played Cincinnati pretty tough and then would struggle. They played BYU down to the wire last year and then would take a step back. That just seems to be where they are as a program.
Yeah, it makes it hard to be a voter because you can throw all, like you said, you could throw the top 25, other than the top 3, you could throw them all and put them in any order and basically be right. Because it's not just the portal, it's 6-year seniors too. When you add those two elements in, it's all of a sudden everybody's on a lot closer, they're not that far apart.
Yeah, and I think when you start thinking about some of the big-time brands as well, last year was a really chaotic coaching carousel. So, LSU is not as strong as they typically might be because they've got a new coach. The Gators are not as strong as they typically might be because they've got a new coach. Some of the other ones across the country, Notre Dame, right? Like, I think there's a bunch of just weird factors that are making this even more parity than usual. I say that, and the playoff is probably going to be Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson, right? Like, I mean, USC, maybe they're the new blood. Yeah, this hot, this upstarts in USC, right? Like, that's just kind of where it is. But aside from that tier, it's absolutely crazy. It makes it very hard to be a voter. I rip things up every single week. Oh man, what can I do with this? And like, every week, you know how it is. Some fan base on Twitter gets mad at you because how could you possibly put Kansas State only at 24 or whatever it is? Like, well, yeah, you could put them 17. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't disagree that strongly. I don't have like super strong feelings about this. I take it seriously. I do the best that I can, but it's after a certain point, there is no separation between them.
No, absolutely. It's really interesting. Coach Spurrier was talking about that on the show the other day. But I want to talk to you about Florida State. And, they're the team that doesn't have a new coach. And that's one reason they finally seem to have settled in on this guy and given him a chance. And I think they had, for once, they didn't fall into the same thing they had been a part of, Tennessee, Florida. Don't like him, fire him. Don't like him, fire him. Where they've settled in on Norvell. How good do you think they are, or do you think that it may have a little bit to do with who they play?
Well, the bad answer is ask me in 3 weeks because they got Wake Forest on Saturday. Wake Forest is good, maybe very good. I love Sam Hartman at quarterback. Perry, the receiver, is really good. The scheme they run, they're a fun team. Wake is good. They are legit. And then they're at NC State. NC State is one of the toughest places to play in the country. Even when Florida State was really good and rolling under Jimbo, they had a bunch of struggles up in Raleigh. So, and NC State's a top 10 team, NFL quarterback, good defense. Then after that, they got Clemson at home. So if they can make it through that, honestly, 1-2, you feel pretty good about where they are. If 2-1, okay. 3-0 is, I'm not counting on it, but as I sit here today, I'm not going to rule it out either. In which case, we're talking about FSU as the cream of the crop in the ACC. So I think any of those options are in play here. Yes, it's fair to question the schedule a little bit. Duquesne's awful. Boston College is awful. But in Louisville, I don't know. But still, LSU, that win looks better, especially finding a way to win in New Orleans in that situation. And then I think we also have, this is weird to say, we also have to give FSU credit for kicking the crap out of bad teams, right? Like they did with Duquesne and Boston College. Go back to last year. Go back to 2020, 2019, 2018, even 17. They were not destroying the teams that they were supposed to destroy. Jacksonville State, right? We all remember what happened then.
Yeah.
So for them to go out and destroy the bad teams, that's what good teams do. And Florida State did that twice. So based on the sample size that we have, FSU, in my eyes, is at least a good team. Ask me after this next few because they got a chance to be a whole lot better than good.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that'll come up in our yes, no, where, maybe, which we'll play in just a minute. But I do want to ask you about the Gators. Obviously, it's been a really weird season so far, certainly for Anthony Richardson. We're on a roller coaster. I mean, do you think, Anthony, what we saw in this last game is who he's going to be the rest of the year? Or do you think it's going to continue? Or are we all sitting here going, we have no idea what's going to happen?
I think the first 4 games as a whole is what we're going to see. Look, he's an inexperienced quarterback, right? It's his first year as a starter. So when that happens, sometimes you get a first year as a starter and it's Bryce Young and he goes out and dominates. But Bryce Youngs do not grow on trees. C.J. Strouds do not grow on trees. Typically, when you've got an inexperienced quarterback, you're going to have some ebbs and flows. Now, let's put him in the situation. Let's remember the context here. Florida's receivers are fine. They're not great. They're fine.
No.
Justin Shorter played really well against Tennessee, but they don't have a bunch of dudes who can burn you and take it, a 5-yard slant and take it 50 yards. They don't have that. So they're not going to help Anthony Richardson a lot with that. And let's not forget, he's on his third quarterbacks coach in 3 years, right? And learning a new system with a new staff. Those are the types of things that can kind of hinder a quarterback's development a little bit. So as I looked at Anthony, I think he's been inconsistent. And I think that's a product of him and his inexperience and the situation around him. So, yeah, I don't know that he's going, for all I know, he'll blow up and be a top 5 pick this year. But if I had to put money on it, I would think this inconsistency, maybe not to this extreme, but this is just going to be the Anthony Richardson experience this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be surprised if the Missouri game he struggles because they get a pretty good defense and then maybe comes back and lights up LSU. I mean, or it could be the other way around. You never have any idea. But again, I brought this up, how when Cam Newton was here, he was terrible at Florida. He wasn't any good. And when he left, I was like, big deal. And he ends up winning the Heisman Trophy in his 4th year, I mean, so it finally clicked on for him. Well, I think your opinion is, and I don't disagree with you on this, that FSU's roster is better than Florida's right now. How did we get to this point? Kind of explain that to the viewers and listeners, how we got to a point where Florida State would have a better roster than Florida.
Continuity is the biggest thing where, they've had the same – this is Mike Norvell's 3rd year. So he has the guys that he wants. He was able to I don't want to say run off. That's not the right way to put it. But there was a lot of attrition his first couple of years where – the Willie Taggart guys that couldn't cut it or weren't the right fit or whatever it is, they left. So this is Jordan Travis is a holdover, right? So there are some. But by and large, these are guys that Mike Norvell recruited, that he wanted, that he evaluated. He's a good evaluator of talent. I think we saw that at Memphis. And I think, too, he has proven himself as a really good – when he can get playmakers and use them. We didn't see them in the first 2 years at FSU, but – I guess a lot of it, too, is the portal, right? Where you look at the receivers. Micah Pittman was a transfer from Oregon that he brought in. Right. Trey Vincent, running back, who had the kickoff return the other day. Norvell was the first one to offer him a scholarship when he was in high school. On him early, transferred in from Oregon. Johnny Wilson, the star of the the Louisville game, transferred from Arizona State. So Norvell, I think, did a really good job of, and then a couple guys on the offensive line are transfers too. So he did a really good job of knowing, okay, these are the positions I like, these are the positions I don't like, and it's been a process. And now that he's got kind of his guys in place with, I hate the whole culture thing, but his program, his culture, everybody knowing what they're supposed to do, it just finally clicked. And Florida's not in that situation where Mullen did not recruit at a high enough level. There's not a ton of dudes. Napier was careful and cautious, and I think correctly so, in how we recruited this 22 class, both the high school ranks and the portal as well. And that's just led to a situation where this is going to be a transition year for the Gators, no question.
Yeah, I think Napier's going to get it together. I thought it was really cool that he asked you about your situation during the hurricane on Wednesday night, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't on that Zoom. We were hunkered down here. Honestly, at that moment, I was trying to keep my 5-year-old entertained because anyone who's ever been a parent understands what it's like to have a little kid, and then imagine that where you can't leave the house for 36 hours straight or whatever. So yeah, Billy kind of gave me a shout out in the press conference the other day, and it's extremely appreciated. And when I see him on Monday, I'm going to go up and shake his hand and let him know that was a very kind gesture that meant a lot to me and my family, and I mean that genuinely, sincerely.
Everything go okay with you guys down there?
Yeah, we're good. We were spared, and power flickered a little bit. Other than that, we were fine. We were able to take the dog out multiple times on Wednesday. What time's all a blur at this point? But yeah, we were fine. we were fine and very fortunate. And there's a bit of survivor's guilt where
absolutely.
We thought we were going to get hammered and prepared, and then it took a turn and hit other people. And what's great for us is bad for them, and just feel devastated for the people down in the Fort Myers area.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's terrible. All right, it's time. Before we let you go, we have to play our game. We love playing it. Yes, no way, or maybe. It's brought to you by Big Mill's Cheesesteak. Street dining done right. If you go into Big Mill's Cheesesteak and say you listen to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, free fries with your order. Did I say that right? Fries, not thighs. Fries. Free French fries, okay, with your order. All right, number one, and we talked about this, FSU goes 3-0 in its next 3 games.
Maybe. I'm not ready to dispute it, to dismiss it outright. I don't think so. I think they beat Wake and then slip up to NC State or Clemson, but I'm not going to dismiss that completely. I don't think Clemson's that great. NC State's beatable. East Carolina almost beat them. So that's a definite maybe.
Yeah, it's. I know for Florida fans, they're sitting there going, well, "What happened? We were making fun of FSU. Do they still have the kicker who missed the onside kick? I mean, come on!" But it's amazing the turnaround that's going on there. Number
because
2,
they were patient. Because they were patient, Dooley.
Yes,
Let's not
exactly.
forget that. It took time.
It's almost Mark Stoopsian,
Yeah, but, I mean, we say it took time. It's his 3rd year, and the first year was COVID, right? So, let's put it in context a little bit. But the fans and administrators were relatively patient, and it just took time to click, and it has clicked.
Absolutely. Number 2, Florida goes to a bowl game this year.
Yes. I think so. I think what we've seen so far is it's just going to be this up and down thing where they'll beat Eastern Washington. I think they'll lose to Georgia. Every other game is probably a coin flip.
Yep.
I just think that's where they are, where they can go up and play and have a chance to beat anybody and also have a chance to lose to anybody. I think that's going to be the year one right now with where this team is.
Yeah, they kind of start their revenge tour next week, because they got to get Missouri, LSU, South Carolina coming up, Georgia, all these teams that made their season miserable last year. Finally, on Yes, No Way, or Maybe, brought to you by Big Mill's Cheesesteak, what is the best band, in your opinion, that has the word "and" in its title?
Best band with "and" in its title.
The reason I bring it up is I'm going to see The Head and the Heart in a couple of weeks over in St. Augustine. And my second favorite band of all time, it has "and" in the title. But I will let you tell me what is your favorite band with "and" in the title?
The one that immediately comes to mind is Simon and Garfunkel.
Ooh, good one. I like that.
My kid went through a phase where he really liked them. They've got a bunch of good songs. It's typically not kind of my music. I'm more, I'm a child that grew up in the 90s, more of kind of a pop punk type thing. But that's the one that jumps to mind. I'm sure I'm forgetting one, but off the top of my head, Simon and Garfunkel.
It's not Echo and the Bunnymen? I mean, thought it would be. I thought you would.
No.
Well, mine's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. But anyway.
But I'm perfectly fine. That's a good one as well. Good. That's a good answer.
But that's a good one too. Matt, always a pleasure talking to you, buddy. I miss being at the press conferences with you, but we'll see you soon. I'll be up there for another game. And thanks again for joining us here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Dooley. Take care, man.
Okay, Matt Baker from the Tampa Bay Times, always a really interesting guy. And again, he knows the state, and it's kind of cool that the Times still has somebody who just covers the entire state, which is he does a great job. Anyway, really like Matt. We've always really gotten along and appreciate him. All right, we got to get a break. We'll come back with a lot of stuff we'll get to and look forward to it. You know what it is, what's coming up. Adam's Ripco to go Gator of the Week, the Hesser and Kipke 3 things, Leonardo's Quarterback Club, this, that, and the other, story time. It's all coming here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast, presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And This is a great Adam brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brew Co. To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Tebow Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Pat Dooley's Story Time is brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. Nobody knows how to provide pediatric health care for little Gators better than Dr. Mike and the other board-certified pediatricians and the pediatric nurse practitioners of Eastlake Pediatrics. They have been providing personalized health care to the children of Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties since 2004. And with the recent addition of Dr. Chris, who is also board certified in sports medicine, they are now offering care for youth sports injuries as well. To learn more about Eastlake Pediatrics, call 727-372-6760. And to get to know them better, listen to Dr. Mike and Dr. Carey on their Peds and Pop podcast on multiple platforms. Gator Football is back, and the best way to get exclusive insight is a membership in the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you the access to speakers like coaches, Gator greats, and more. Yeah, I even talk over there. It's pretty cool. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-person meetings or for non-locals via Zoom with an out-of-town membership. Right now, out-of-town memberships are only $150, and all new out-of-town signups get entered to win 2 Champions Club tickets to homecoming. That's pretty cool. Against Missouri, speaker presentations, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or call me, Pat Dooley, 352-317-3444, and I'll get you in touch with the right people. Gainesville Quarterback Club. Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Thanks so much to Matt Baker for being on the show again Monday, It'll be Coach Spurrier again, and then Danny on Friday, so that'll be cool. We're efforting to get Commissioner Sankey, and we thought he was going to be on Friday, but now he's going to be on at some point. I know that. Okay, so let us get to our Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the Week, as always presented to you by Adams Rib, and we appreciate Adam so much for everything, and really enjoyed that barbecue. Certainly had some great barbecue on Sunday with him, and probably going to go there tomorrow. I got a whole day. All I'm going to do is just vegetate and watch games. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll go for a walk or something, but at some point I am going to go get Adams. Our Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the Week is John Dubois, who was and again, it could be DuBois for all I know. Well, how would you pronounce Dubois? 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 John. We'll just call him John. But I should know the pronunciation name. I should just call JC and asked him. But he had the clinching win in the SEC match play. This is way back on Tuesday, I know, but it's within the week. And congratulations to him. This is the same guy that won the individual SEC championship last year, so I should know how to pronounce his name. But Florida, of course, beat Mississippi State in that match 3-2. And this is an important meet because it's kind of getting you ready, because it was SEC match play. And it's kind of getting you ready for the end of the year when you're going to play. Match play is what you're going to end up playing if you want to win the national title, and it's what you're going to have to win the SEC as well, because everybody's changed the way they do it in college golf, where you have you have medalists. You have team play. I'll get it right eventually to a point, and then you stop and you go 6-on-6 or 5-on-5 or whatever it is. But anyway, I know more about golf than I'm letting on right now. Okay, so John, he is our Adams Ribco to Go Gator of the Week, and it will be a lot to choose from this weekend, I'm sure. It is time for our Hesser and Kipke 3 Things. And as we know, 3 Things as always is brought to you by Hesser and Kipke, a law firm based in Hale Plantation, specializing in employment, workers' comp, and family law. Visit their website at www.hklawfl.com or call Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920. Ken and Jennifer, we appreciate them as a sponsor, and of course when they sponsor Robbie on Mondays too. Hesser and Kipke, 3 Things. Number 1, Aaron Judge, and again, you're watching this, he may have hit this 60-second homer if you're listening to this later, but live we're going to talk about that he hit his 61st. I'm ready for this to be over, but I don't know, Roger Maris Jr. is certainly enjoying it. It seems like I think it's so cool that he is there and has been everywhere, not only in New York, but in Toronto, to see this, and he's getting a lot of love. In fact, Tony Kornheiser brought it up on PTI the other day. But Roger's a friend, and I texted him and said, "Hey, you look great on TV." He texted me back how crazy it was, but it's important. I think it just is a touch of class that the Maris family's always had. Whenever I've dealt with them, and I remember interviewing Roger Maris's wife back in the old days when the 61 movie was coming out. But anyway, I'm ready for this Judge thing to be over because I don't want you splitting my screens anymore. We talked about that last week. Number 2 on the Hesser and Kipke 3 Things is the mess of Brett Favre. And let me just say this. Nothing's going to happen to Brett Favre. This is America. It's not going to happen to a hero in the state of Mississippi. It's just not, okay? But what he's done is despicable. It is going to affect his legacy. People are always going to talk about how Brett Favre took money from welfare people and his own foundation, which is supposed to help cancer patients and children, and diverted it to the University of Southern Mississippi, which is his alma mater, and texted people involved, says, "Am I going to get caught? Is there any way I could get caught? Can we keep it?" It's a bad look. And I would think it'd be hard for people to want to hire him as a sponsor of anything. But nothing's going to happen to him. Yeah, come on, man. We know better than that. But it really is bad. It's really bad, and everybody's just slamming him, and that's what his legacy is going to be. That guy. But nothing's going to happen to him. All right, and number 3 on Hesser and Kipke, 3 things. We talked about 2, but one other thing that I thought was interesting, because I really didn't, it didn't really hit me until I heard this as a stat, and then I went and looked it up, and sure enough, it was true. But right now, Ken Hesser's Eagles are the only undefeated team, the only team with a chance at breaking the record. And the Miami Dolphin fans and former players who were still rooting for the Dolphins. Believe me, if the Dolphins went undefeated again, they would go, yeah, that's cool. We love it. But everybody else, they pop champagne, which I think is kind of cool. Some people get mad about it. I don't think it. But the Dolphins, they wouldn't have a problem with. But the Eagles are the only ones still left been beaten. That tells you where the NFL is right now. Everybody's got a loss. Everybody, except one team. And that team eventually will have a loss. Come on. They're not going 17-0. And then would they have to go 20-0 to win the whole thing and break the record or tie the record? Actually break the record and tie it. Going undefeated is what I'm saying. All right. So anyway, that's pretty interesting to me that there's only one undefeated team left, and we're just in week 4 and haven't even really got to week 4. I tell you, watching that game on Prime Video last night, that production wasn't great. And I understand. I mean, I'm sure they hired people that had done this before, but the production quality is just not the same. No, not quite the same. Anyway, all right, that is our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. So, Ken, I got the Eagles in there for you, okay? Phillies, I'm going to stay away from because I don't want to get you mad. They're struggling right now. All right, let us get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks, and we're probably going to have to pull a winner pretty soon because we're getting a lot of qualifiers. A lot of people are getting in the contest. It's pretty split down the middle how you guys did on the Miami-Cincinnati game. Obviously, Cincinnati not only covered, but they won in the end easily. Miami just ran out of energy. They really did. I mean, you can't play a Sunday night game and then a Thursday night game and your quarterback goes down, and you're wondering if he's even alive at one point, and that energy is going to eventually dissipate, and that's what happened to them. But if you pick Cincinnati, you're qualified for our next drawing, which will probably come up in a week or so. I don't know exactly when. I haven't thought that much about it, but probably I would think maybe next Friday. To celebrate homecoming, could easily happen. I think it will. So we did get a lot of qualifiers. I got them all written down at home, and they are there. So we got 2 games for you. You got to get them both right to qualify this week. I'm making it a little bit harder for you. Kentucky at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is giving 7. Now, look, the odds are set to make you want to bet on both teams. Ole Miss, I mean, Kentucky, we know what Kentucky is. I mean, they're a physical team. They get Chris Rodriguez back, and yet they're 7-point underdogs. And you look at that and you go, man, okay. Ole Miss is a good home team. But then Lane Kiffin called out his fans and said he's mad that they go out, I guess, at halftime and get pounded again. And they come back in for the second half and there are no fans there. It feels like a high school game. So he called out his fans. Now, I think that'll have a positive result, but you never know. It could have a negative result. They may start booing him. But anyway, Kentucky is a 7-point underdog to Ole Miss. I'm not trying to tell you who to pick. I'm just telling you what the odds are. The other one is LSU is giving up 8 points at Auburn. So that's the opposite of the Kentucky thing because LSU, we know LSU's better than Auburn because Auburn is just such a weird team. Still, it seems kind of like a lot of points to give LSU. Maybe LSU's starting to find things. I don't know. But those are the 2 games. Kentucky getting 7 at Ole Miss. LSU giving 8 at Auburn. Pick them both right, and you get into the mix for $25 at Leonardo's at Millhopper. Plus, I got some good stuff that I just got. So I got some other cool prizes that you're going to have. All right, it's time for us to get to the Gainesville Quarterback Club Games of the Weekend. Brought to you by the Gainesville Quarterback Club, where Chris Doring gave a great speech last week, and I am blanking on who's speaking Tuesday. I'll find it I can't remember for some reason. But I will get that to you Monday on the Monday show. Who's going to be the speaker then? I can't think of it. Okay, the best state game in the state is obviously Wake Forest at FSU. That is a 3:30 game on ABC. FSU 7-point favorite in that game. I think it's going to be a fun game. I hope it is. There's so many good games this weekend, theoretically. Remember last week, and everybody said, are there any good games? I go, not really, but there's some interesting ones. And there were. And it was really interesting. I think it's going to be better this week. SEC, the best game to me is Texas A&M at Mississippi State. I'm fascinated to see what happens in this game. Mississippi State is actually a 4-point favorite in that game. That game is at 4 on the SEC network. That is a 2 TV deal there where you get the FSU game on one and that game on another, and then you got Alabama-Arkansas also going on at the same time. It's going to be wild. And then the national game, I'll go with the game that they're going to be at, the NC State at Clemson. South Carolina is getting pounded by that storm right now, but they're still going to play a game as far as I know. Again, things could change, but Clemson is a 7-point favorite against NC State. NC State ranked 10th, Clemson 5. That's why I made it the national game of the week. That's at 7:30 on ABC, so that'll be great. Those are our Gainesville Quarterback Club games of the weekend. Appreciate the Gainesville Quarterback Club as always. It is time for This, That, and the Other. Brought to you by Ballyhoo Grill, by the Ironwood Golf Course, and by Dar Shakow Insurance. We appreciate their sponsorships as well. This is before the season. I think a lot of us talked ourselves into thinking this was going to be a good defense because I know these players. These were four stars. These guys, and Ventrell Miller's back. It's going to be different. It's not going to be the same thing. Then came the second half of the Utah game. And that's where you kind of went, whoa. Utah made a little bit of an adjustment. They decided to run the ball more, and they went right down Florida's throat. Florida was very fortunate to win that game, as we all know. And after that happened, you went, okay, let's see what happens next week. And then, it was better, but it was not good. And then the following week was not good. And last week, of course, was terrible. That was at that. The other is, I am of the belief this may not be fixable this year. It could probably take a couple of recruiting classes to get to that point where Florida used to be on defense. I've talked about this stat, which is unbelievable, that Florida could become only the second team in school history to give up over 400 yards of offense, and they could. They're at that pace right now. I don't know what they can do. Now, they have made changes in the lineup, but I don't know that it's going to make a difference. I don't know. This could be just a defense you got to deal with all year. Just the way it is. So that is This, That, and the Other, brought to you by Ballyhoo, by Ironwood, and by Dar Shakow Insurance. Finally, we get to Pat Dooley's story time, and I promised this story, and I've told this story before. If you've heard it, it's okay to turn me off. But I've told it a long time ago, but I'm telling it now on Pat Dooley's story time, brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics, and we appreciate them. We hope everybody's okay down there in Hillsborough County. So we hope everything was good there. So this was the Heisman Trophy that Danny Werfel won, and so we're there. We're not even in the same room. We're off in a kind of a press room they have, and he wins the award. We do the interviews and get done writing, and they go, "Hey, you going to go down to the bar?" We're like, "There's a bar?" And yeah, there's a downtown athletic club bar. It's this beautiful mahogany bar, and we go down there and we order. I think we ordered Heinekens. Everybody ordered Heinekens. There's like 6 or 7 of us media boys. And they go, we said, how much? They go, no, you're good. You're good. You're part of the Heisman Club this in one night. Cool. So as we're sitting there, Danny Werfel's dad walks by. And we found out that Danny was having a party in the back. And we had Dave Shina with us, who worked at the Miami Herald at the time. Now he works for the Washington Post, who was trained as an operatic singer and sang this unbelievable version of "Oh Danny Boy," which we would get him to do every time. We'd have a couple of, let's sing Danny Boy. So he previewed it for Danny's dad, and he goes, "You guys are coming with me." So we all go back into the Werfel party. There's a bunch of people back there, and Dave Shinan gets up and sings "Oh Danny Boy," and it's just brings a tear to your eye. It's so good. It's amazing. And everybody applauds, and we're walking out, and as we're walking out, Danny Werfel sticks his head up and goes, "I knew eventually I'd find one of you guys had some talent." Great line, Danny. That's as good a line as it gets. That was one of my favorite nights of all time. Really was. In fact, I remember the lead of my column was that how it, as cold as it was outside, it all of a sudden felt all warm and fuzzy inside the Downtown Athletic Club when Danny Werfel won the Heisman. It's not a bad lead. I don't like that lead. All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much to Tammy and Jason for doing a wonderful job of producing, and we'll be back Monday with we'll talk a little bit about Eastern Washington, but we'll look ahead to Missouri a little bit too. We got a lot of things we'll be able to talk about on Monday and the HBC will be in here. Look forward to that. Until Monday, I am Pat Dooley saying I am deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.